A boy named Manoj leaves his small village for the city to take an exam with the hopes of returning as a police officer. As he arrives in the city, he discovers that someone has stolen the bag containing all the money he has. With the exams he came for also getting cancelled, this leaves Manoj stranded in a city where he knows no one. A few years earlier, an honest man named Ramveer gets suspended from work after failing to help his boss and the mayor steal some funds meant for poor farmers in the village. This gets him really angry, and he decides to fight the injustice by going to the city to file a case with the high court. While his mom supports him, his wife thinks there's no use for it because their youngest son, Manoj, will pass his 12th grade exam and get a good job to take care of the family. The next day, while Manoj and his classmates are ready to cheat in their exams, their teacher says he'll make it easy by writing the answers on the board. Just as he does this, the village's new deputy superintendent of police, Dushyant, arrives to stop the cheating, as the school principal tries to convince him that cheating is an old tradition that is meant to help the children make good grades so they can get good jobs. Dushyant still doesn't seem convinced, especially because the mayor also has a hand in it. He eventually gets the principal arrested, and this makes Manoj and all his classmates fail 12th grade. The following day, Ramveer leaves the village to begin his fight for justice. Since Manoj can't get a good job, he joins his older brother Kamlesh in his rickshaw driving business. Things don't eventually turn out well, as Kamlesh and Manoj get arrested for not allowing their passengers to enter the mayor's bus. While in custody, the boys are very stubborn, so the policemen say they're just like their father. Manoj doesn't like hearing his father get insulted, so he confronts one of the men. As the man asks what he'll do, Manoj says he'll shoot him with his grandfather's gun. The policeman laughs and dares Manoj to bring the gun, so he's allowed to leave. However, Manoj goes to Dushyant's house instead. After begging the DSP to help him, Dushyant says he'll have it sorted the next day, but Manoj doesn't like this. He then lashes out and blames Dushyant for hindering his chances of getting a good job after he stopped the school from cheating. Dushyant finally decides to help him, and as they get to the police station, he gets Kamlesh released, after which he also scolds his officers for always doing a bad job. When he then leaves, he offers the two brothers a ride home. On the way, Manoj can't help but admire Dushyant, and he also says that the DSP has made him see that when an honest person has power, they can change a lot of bad things. As Dushyant then drops them at home, Manoj asks how he can be like him, and the DSP says he needs to stop cheating first. From the next day, Manoj takes Dushyant's advice and starts reading for his 12th grade exams. A year later, the DSP gets transferred, so the school goes back to the old cheating habit. However, only Manoj doesn't cheat. When the results are released, everyone passed excellently except Manoj, who doesn't care as long as his hard work made him pass. In the days that follow, his family has barely enough to survive, so they start selling their belongings, including their cows. Because of the lack of funds, Manoj is also unable to further his education, so he can become a DSP like Dushyant. Luckily, his grandmother calls him one day and gives him all her life savings so he can leave for the city of Gwalior to write the exams that will make him become a DSP. Manoj is very grateful for this, but his grandmother just looks proud because she hopes that the next time he comes to the village, he would have become a DSP. Following this, Manoj leaves the village after saying goodbye to his family. He boards a bus to Gwalior and sits next to a woman with a baby. On the ride to the new city, Manoj sleeps off, and when he gets to Gwalior, he discovers that the woman sitting next to him has stolen his bag containing all his belongings and money. As he also fails to find her, Manoj looks frustrated because he might no longer be able to fulfill his dreams. He eventually spends the night on the streets, but his time in Gwalior gets worse in the morning when he discovers that the government has cancelled the exams that make someone eligible to become a DSP. This makes him angry, but there's nothing he can do about it. After days of keeping to himself and not begging for food, Manoj finally builds the courage to enter a restaurant to ask for food in exchange for rendering his services to them. Luckily, the restaurant owner is a nice man, so he tells Manoj that he doesn't need to do anything to pay for the food. As Manoj argues with the man because he doesn't want to appear as a beggar, a man named Pandey offers to pay for his food. Manoj then goes to meet Pandey, who is planning to return home after the cancellation of the exams. However, Manoj says he can't go home because he already misplaced his grandmother's life savings. Just then, Pandey gets a call from his father, telling him to go to Delhi to enroll for classes so he can take an exam to become an IPS officer. As he's leaving, Manoy asks if being an IPS officer is the same as a DSP, but Pandey says that an IPS officer is a high-ranking position. This sounds interesting to Manoy, so he begs Pandey to take him along because he now wants to become an IPS officer. Despite initially hesitating, Pandey agrees because Manoj has nowhere else to go. Shortly after, they arrive in Delhi, and while Pandey is speaking to a guy named Tutul, Manoj sits outside looking worried. When Pandey then asks what's wrong, Manoj says that because Delhi is filled with a lot of students, he's scared that he might never become an IPS officer. However, Tutul tells them that he knows a man in his last stage of the exams who can tutor them. Just then, he takes them to meet a man named Gaurinandan. As they meet him, Gaurinandan explains that the exams are in 3 stages, comprising of the prelims, mains, and the interview. He tells them that he's waiting for the results of his interview stage because he's also in his last attempt of writing the exams. Pandey asks what he means, and Gaurinandan says that all applicants have only 4 attempts to pass the exam. As he says he's open to tutoring more students, Manoj asks if Gaurinandan can help him get a job since he has no money. Following this, Gaurinandan gets him a job as a cleaner at a library. Later that day, while Pandey is celebrating with an expensive drink, Manoj asks how he can afford it. He then mentions that his dad collects a lot of bribes as a civil servant. He adds that even though he wants to be on TV, his dad prefers for him to become a high-ranking officer so he can collect lots of bribes like him. The next day, Manoj begins his job and also takes some time to study for his prelims. A few days later, Gaurinandan fails his interview and looks disappointed because he'll never fulfill his dream of becoming an IPS officer. While Manoj feels sorry for him, Pandey decides to take lessons from a guy named Deep who passed. Despite his disappointment, Gaurinandan promises to tutor other candidates for free in his new coffee shop. With this, Manoy is able to continue learning under Gaurinandan's guidance. However, during his first attempt, he fails woefully. As he looks disappointed, Gaurinandan encourages him to stay positive. Just then, Manoj intensifies his efforts at studying. He also spends some time working for Gaurinandan at his coffee shop. One day, while Deep is lecturing some students now that he is now an officer, Manoy comes over to serve him tea, so he mistakes him for an errand boy. However, Pandey is there, so he tells Deep that Manoj is also a student. Deep immediately says sorry for the misunderstanding. He also tells Manoy that if he ever needs help, he should reach out. A year after his first attempt, Manoj writes the prelims again and passes. He looks quite happy about this, and Gaurinandan celebrates with him. Pandey also congratulates his friend, even though he has now failed his second attempt. Since it's time to prepare for the mains, Manoj goes to enroll at a popular coaching center. However, he realizes that the center is not as good as they claim. Just as he decides to find another center, he sees a girl named Shraddha who wants to become an IRS officer. As Manoj tries to talk to her, Shraddha's dad says they have to leave. Manoj then tells them that if they need help with anything, they can find him at the library. A while later, Shraddha visits Manoy and sees him reading an aeronautical engineering book, so she thinks he's an engineer. He doesn't get the chance to explain himself as his boss, then tells him to get back to work. Days later, they start attending the same coaching center. In one of the classes, Manoj is praised by the teacher for being the only student who wrote a wonderful essay, and this makes him happy. Much later, Manoy and Shraddha get even closer, and she gets him a gift for Diwali, even though he tells her not to get him anything. The following day, while at their coaching class, the teacher asks an engineering question, so Shraddha points out Manoj as the best person to answer it. However, he says he can't answer it because he's not an engineer, and she feels embarrassed. Despite his attempts to apologize, though, she ignores him. The next day, Manoj quits his job at the library after his boss accuses him of stealing. He then starts working at a flour mills factory, which is also where he studies and sleeps. Pandey hears this and visits his friend, but he looks disgusted as he sees where Manoj sleeps. Pandey says it's going to be hard for Manoy to read there, but he insists that he's okay with how things are. His friend also advises him to speak to Shraddha before she leaves for her prelims, but Manoj says he'll find her after he passes his mains. Days later, Manoj writes the paper for his mains. During the exam, he fails to read the question very well, so he ends up writing an essay on the wrong topic. As someone calls his attention to it after the exams, Manoj looks disappointed because he has wasted his second attempt. Following this, he travels to Shraddha's house to see her. Unfortunately, he doesn't meet her there, and when he calls her, she sounds rude and tells him to leave her house. This leaves him disappointed, but he then returns to his village. When he arrives, he sees that his younger sister, Rajni, is now taller. He also learns that Kamlesh is now in a neighboring village where he does some menial jobs just to send money home. In addition to this, he finds out that his dad is still battling his case in court after all these years. After a while, he also discovers that his grandmother is dead. He asks why his mom never told him, but she says it was his grandmother's request to keep him from knowing so that he won't get distracted. As his mom then pretends like everything is fine at home, he tells her to stop, and they both cry as Mano promises to work harder so he can send more money home. Following this, Manoy returns to the city to continue his work and studies. Few days later, Ramveer visits his son, who looks happy to see his dad after a long time. However, as Ramveer sees where his son sleeps, he tells Manoy that it might be time to go home. He adds that he'll accept his fate and beg his old boss for a job. As he cries while saying this, Manoj says they can't give up. He also convinces his dad that they should keep fighting to be honest people. Few days later, Shraddha returns to the coaching class, and Manoj sees her. After class, she comes over to apologize for how she spoke to him when he went to her house. However, he says he now knows that there's no time for love until he achieves his goal. She asks if they can find a place to talk, but Manoj says they can talk after his exams, and she agrees. A few months later, Manoj passes his exam, but Pandey fails again. As Shraddha goes to celebrate with Manoj, she sees where he's staying and can't believe her eyes. Manoj still doesn't see a problem with it, but as she advises him to quit his job to focus on his mains, he says he can't stop working because he has responsibilities. A few months later, Manoj fails his mains, but Shraddha still stands by him. As Pandey sees this, though, he gets jealous and blames Shraddha for distracting Manoj. He also tells his friend to be careful with her, because if he fails for the 4th time, she'll leave him. Shraddha walks away after this, but as Manoj follows her, she tells him that she loves him. She also says that she hopes that her love for him will drive him to do whatever he needs to pass. Just then, Manoj runs to meet Deep to call in the favor he owes. Even though Deep says he's busy, he allows Manak into his house when he insists. Manoj asks Deep for advice on how to pass his mains, and he says it all has to do with planning his time well. He then times Manoj and tells him to write a 200-word article under 8 minutes. Manoj fails to do this, and Deep says if he can't manage his time, he'll never pass his mains. Manoj eventually leaves the house, but as he gets back to Gorinandan's shop and complains about what Deep said, Gorinandan stops him from working. He then tells Tutul to clear his room for Manoj to stay in. He also says he'll be sending money to Manoj's family just to make sure he stops working. As Manoj rejects the favor, Gorinandan tells him that he can repay it with double when he gets his first salary as an IPS officer. Following this, Manoj starts learning under better conditions. Shraddha also gives him a stopwatch to help him prepare well for his exams. A while later, she leaves for her exams and eventually clears the last stage before becoming an IRS officer. After weeks of studying, Manoj also passes his mains and looks happy. Pandey fails in his last attempt, and as he sees Manoj looking excited to call Shraddha, he feels betrayed. He then says that despite bringing Manoj to Delhi, he still never cared to ask for his result. Manoj doesn't get this, and he tells Pandey to confront his father about wanting a different career if he's so angry. He then leaves to call his mom and inform her of the good news. After this, he calls Shraddha's house, but her mom answers the phone and tells him that Shraddha can't speak to him. Manoj looks disappointed, but he stays up late until she calls back. She then tells Manoj that she won't be able to visit him anymore because someone called her dad and lied to him that she and Manoj have been sleeping together. Manoj can't believe this, but she wishes him good luck in his interview. Manoj then calls Pandey, but a police officer answers the phone and tells him that his friend is now in jail for shouting abusive words in public. When Manoj gets to the police station, he accuses the policeman of detaining Pandey because he wants to get bribed. He also mentions that when he passes his interview and becomes an IPS officer, he'll make sure the policeman gets a suspension. As a senior officer hears this, he allows Pandey to be released. While Pandey is happy, Manoj asks for his phone and sees that his friend was the one who called Shraddha's parents. This gets him really angry, and he lets Pandey know how he feels before walking away. Elsewhere, Shraddha tells her dad that she can't believe he would believe a stranger over her. She also mentions that she wants to be there for Manoj, just like her parents are there for each other. Days later, while Manoj is preparing for his interview, Shraddha shows up, and he looks very happy. After this, she then follows him to get a haircut before they head to Pandy's apartment together. There, Manoj says he just wanted to see his friend before going for his interview. He also thanks Pandy for helping him to Delhi. Just then, Pandy says sorry for what he did, but Shraddha jokes about it and says that because he lies so well, he'll make a good TV reporter. Shortly after, Shraddha follows Manoj to the venue of his interview. On the way, she gives him a note to only open it when he's alone. As he then arrives at the venue, she wishes him good luck as he walks into the building. While in the waiting area, Manoj gets really nervous and doesn't even know when his name is called. When he eventually hears it, he goes to see the man who will check his papers. As the man sees that Manoj failed in 12th grade, he laughs and tells the usher to take him to the interview room. On the way, the usher then tells Manoj that the head of the interview panel, Mehta, is usually biased towards students who were taught in Hindi instead of English. Because of this, he advises Manoj to give an excuse that his grandmother's death was the reason he had a gap year in his 12th grade. Manoj then enters the interview room, and as Mehta checks his papers and sees the gap year, he asks what happened. Despite the usher's advice, Manoj still mentions that he failed because a new DSP stopped his school from cheating. Mehta can't believe this answer, and he tells Manoj that his interview is over. On his way out, though, a woman on the panel tells him to wait outside. While he's waiting, he gets really nervous and takes off his suit. He then sees Shraddha's note and decides to read it. In the note, Shraddha mentions that she'll still love him regardless of whether he's an IPS officer or a flour mill worker. She then asks if he'll marry her, and this makes him happy. Just then, he's called back in. As he's asked why he didn't lie to the panel about cheating, he says it didn't feel right. He also says that it was Dushyant who advised him to change. He adds that even though he could have cheated when Dushyant left, he was more interested in getting an honest grade. Mehta then says he still doesn't think Manoj is a right fit, because there are candidates who didn't fail like him. However, Manoj says he believes he's more deserving of the position because not many people have experienced the kind of cheating he's trying to fight against. A woman on the panel then asks what he would do if he doesn't get selected in his last attempt, and Manoj says he'll be a school teacher so he can teach students values like honesty. Following this, he's asked to leave, but as he does so, he hears Mehta call him a waste of time. Weeks later, the results are released, and even though Manoj doesn't want to check it because he knows it won't be positive based on what Mehta said, Shraddha encourages him to go. As he then refuses to follow her to check the results, Shraddha comes back with teary eyes as she tells him that he passed. Manoj immediately breaks down in tears as he can't believe he passed. It then turns out that while Mehta had called Manoj a waste of time, the other panel members voted for him to be selected because they loved his honesty. After a while, Gaurinandan and Tutul arrive to celebrate with Manoj. Pandey also arrives, and he records a video of them as a reporter for his online blog. Following this, Manoj also calls his parents to inform them of the good news, and they're equally excited. A year later, Manoj visits Dushyant at the station where he now works. Everyone, including Dushyant, salutes him, but Manoj still respectfully greets the DSP. As he realizes that Dushyant doesn't recognize him, Manoj tells him who he is, and the DSP looks incredibly happy. He also hugs Manoj and happily salutes him. Manoj then invites him to his wedding, and he agrees to be there. A while later, Manoj gets married to Shraddha in a colorful ceremony, with Pandey also recording the event for his blog.